Hey everyone, this is Coach Mark here with
Coach Hines.
and this is For What It's Worth Coaching Podcast, and this is episode 23. And today we're going to start off, this weekend I was watching church online, which most people are doing nowadays because of the COVID thing, but I go to a church here in San Diego, a pretty big church, and the pastor is a great speaker. And one of the things that he brought up today is, especially with the climate of the political climate that's going on today, you know, where everyone's picking a side, you know, this side or that side. We got to win because of this. We got to win because of that. If we lose, whatever, they're going to come up with a bunch of different things, and it's causing a big division in our country.
It is horrible division.
Yes, and it's pitting everybody against. It's almost like rivalries when you're going against your rival school, and homecoming's coming up, and you know you're playing, and you know there's a slight hatred between each other.
I love that analogy because when you Coach Tighe mentioned right when you got here once again. You guys hear this often if you follow us and listen to our podcast. But we typically just say, hey, let's talk about this today. And there's not much discussion behind it.
Right.
But when you mentioned high school rivalries, one of the first things that just came on to my mind was, as young adults, children, we do childish things.
Correct.
And as adults, you hope you outgrow those things.
You would think.
And it's not the case.
No, not at all. But one of the things he would say is after the election, what are you going to do in your heart? And what he means by that is, what are you going to do? If you win the election, if your side wins the election, are you going to be that gracious winner and start bringing us together? Or if you lose the election, are you going to be that poor sport that just hates it and calls out people that are voted for him, you know, and whether they agree with them or not? Or are you going to start realizing, okay, this is what the majority of us wanted? Are we going to move on and start uniting this country?
Yeah.
You know, whether they're doing things or not, there is stuff we can do between each other, like forgive each other, love each other, you know, break bread with each other, you know, and just realize that, okay, our differences aren't that bad to where our friendships are lost.
Right. And as Americans, you know, and Coach Tighe and I, we agreed a few weeks ago that we weren't going to get into politics, but this is such a great, you know, I think often we talk as coaches about how baseball or football is so much more than just a game because you can learn so much that applies to our everyday lives. You know, I've often thought that you can tell very little about an individual or a program after a big win. Mm-hmm. It's after the losses. Yes. You see their true color, their true character. Mm-hmm. And if we are all on the same team, and by team I mean Americans,
yes,
as blessed men and women in one of, I still feel, if not the greatest countries in the United States, what are we going to do once all is said and done, once November 3rd or a week after when they finally figure out who wins, when we realize we're still in the United States together, we're still in this together, we're still on the same team, what are we going to do will show a lot of the world.
Definitely.
Our character and who we are as a nation.
Yeah, because every country and every person in the country, they either want to come here or they want to emulate the United States.
Yep.
Because we're such a great country, we're such a diverse country, whether it's skin color, character, beliefs, places where you live. That's why I was so glad when I joined the military. And I bring this up to my son a lot, that being in the military was probably the most diverse job I've ever been in. And, you know, you can be with another, like, you know, as you can see, I'm a white guy from California. Yeah, believe it or not.
No idea.
And I could go to work with another white guy who's from Georgia.
Yeah.
And we're totally raised in totally different sides of the country. And we're raised differently. The culture is a little different in the South than it is in the West. But no matter what color you are, what religion you are, orientation, whatever, that you come together for one specific mission. And it just seems like this mission is to continue making our country the best country out there.
Yes.
You know?
And I think another way it applies to our everyday lives, in sports, have you ever lost a game as a player, as a coach?
Always.
Not always. I know he's won a lot as a player and a coach. But you do, and then that's part of our success as athletes, as coaches, is realizing that the failures are part of our success. And, you know, when you lose a big game, whether it's the first game of the season mid-season, the game that gets you knocked out of the playoffs, or if it's in that state championship, you have to, as a member of that team, whether you are an assistant coach, a head coach, a starter, or a third string, ask yourself, what now? You know, as you mentioned, Miles McPherson. It's McPherson, correct?
Yeah.
From The Rock?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been there a few times. Great church.
Yes.
Great pastor. Then what? What are you going to do? And I think this is the question. One of the questions I would love to have anyone listening really reflect upon is, as you are in your season right now, as many sports are, or as you are heading into the next season, what are you going to do? What's your heart going to be for that feel and that pulse and that heartbeat of your team? Is it going to create more division and anger and hatred? Or is it going to be one that unifies and brings people together? And without mentioning sides, you know, we've talked offline. It scares me. It really does, to think this coming election, regardless of who wins, what certain individuals are going to do.
Definitely.
With rioting and burning down of cities, and that there's no good at all, in my opinion, that can come from that.
Or even just fighting in the courts.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think also, and you've had this, I know I've had this, after a tough loss, and you walk through the locker room, and you want to see people upset. You pour your heart into it. You want to see that there's a level of care, that they're not just blowing it off, but you also don't want to see your teammates, your players fighting with each other.
Right.
Because that does nothing to move you forward for the next week's competition.
Right.
You know?
Right. And I think that one thing is, like, you know, you reflect upon those losses and those failures, and you take self-responsibility for it. But as you're part as a team, what part do you have of that team to make it come all together?
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But, you know, you sit there and think, you can yell and scream all you want, you can be mad all you want, but at the end of the day, you got to reflect. You got to remember the history of what you've done, what the program has done as a coach, parents, you know, actually looking forward and supporting these kids when they do get this failure, and, you know, make them realize that, hey, the outcome is not always going to be in their favor. And the idea of they're always getting a trophy is not true. It's not reality.
Right.
You know, and that's the thing, is this trophy mentality is not going to make us better. It's got to make us, you know, understand that, hey, we're going to fail. We're not going to win everything, but what are we going to do to move forward?
Absolutely.
You know, and, you know, like what you always say, be where your feet are.
Yep.
You know, and if you're not where your feet are, you're not going to progress further. You got to be in that moment, understand what's going on in that moment, and how's it going to affect you in the future? How's it going to affect the team in the future? How's it going to reflect upon you as in your character in the future too?
Yeah, very, very well said. I kind of love, this is off the cuff here. Well, our whole podcast.
You're going to put me on the spot?
No, just the
Yeah,
opposite. Our whole
weird.
podcast is off the cuff.
Yeah.
I kind of love that you came up with this topic, truly, because now I feel like I'm just feeding off you.
Oh,
because you
weird.
had a little bit of time to, and I love that. Because I love what you're sharing. I think also, you know, it's, the fact is, the winner of this election, there's going to be a majority of people who are happy.
Yes.
Because that's, whether we agree with the numbers or not, then, you know, people voted a certain way, and people that are not happy. But I think it goes back to, you know, in coaching, we always talk about what's our why. What's
Right.
our ultimate goal? And Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever you identify as an individual, what's your ultimate goal? You know, as a voter in the United States, as an athlete or a coach, if your ultimate goal is to win hearts, is to help those around you, is to be a successful business owner or citizen or teammate, even after that tough loss, if your side or your team doesn't win,
Definitely.
you have to remember your why. You know, and if you didn't like a certain candidate because he or she didn't show enough love or compassion or teamwork, then if your side loses, how are you going to show what you were looking to have more of?
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. You know, in reality is like we have a nation full of problem identifiers. And it's easy,
Yes.
you know, and it's easy to be that Monday morning quarterback. It's easy to sit on the sidelines, you know, on the baseball field and watch what the coach is doing, and why is he doing that? Why is she doing that? And you know, why'd they call that play in the fourth quarter? You know, and you know, I know Pete Carroll got that, you know, big time when he didn't give it to Marshawn Lynch at the 2-yard line Super Bowl. But anyway, but the reality is like it's easy to identify problems. Be that person that goes out and and is a solution to the problem.
Yes.
It's so, and that's the toughest part, is really coming up with a solution, putting yourself out there, and really making a difference. Whether people are going to get on you. There's always those naysayers when you do put yourself out there, but having the courage to go out there and be a solution to the problem instead of adding to the problem by just fueling the fire to it.
Yes, I actually share something with my staff in the 2 times on my second stint now as being a head coach, but in New Hampshire and now here in Coronado, where I share something with our staff that I stole, and I always give credit, but to a principal I once worked for in New Hampshire at an elementary school, and it was his first staff meeting on the job, and I remember him saying, "Do not ever come to my office or do not approach me with a problem." And he paused for a minute, and I'll never forget it. We were sitting in the library, and right away you could feel the tension in the room. Like, who is this guy? What's going on?
Yeah.
And he paused and he said, "Do not ever come to me without willing to be part of the solution."
Definitely.
And I love that. As a coach, I don't want one of my assistant coaches to come to me with a problem, whatever it may be, without willing to put in the time, effort, and energy to say, "Hey, they may or may not have an answer, but I'm willing to put in the time to be part of that answer, part of that solution." I had also read on Twitter earlier today, someone had tweeted out, I think the problem with America right now is ignorance. What are your thoughts?
Oh, 100%.
And I agreed with that. It's funny because I said something to the effect of 100%. Yeah. However, especially in today's day and age, I mean, we're recording this entire podcast in this $1 million studio in our living, in my living room.
But it's your $1 million home.
Yeah, well,
right?
it's we're renting it for someone else. But it's with technology that we have today. Ignorance, in my opinion, is a choice more now than ever. I'm ignorant. When something happens to my truck, I go to Jill and say, "What do you think it is?" And people will laugh at that, but I have my strengths and my strong suits, and she's better with that stuff, and she knows more about it. The fact is, if I wanted to know how to fix something in my truck, it's at our fingertips.
Oh,
it's
well,
there.
yes.
And I hate to admit this, but I'm as guilty as many people. I hate to say as the next. I think I'm a little bit better, and not just reading the headlines. But I think too many of us, especially in politics, read the headlines and make our judgment and end up hating this candidate or loving that one more and not digging a little deeper. And we choose, pointing to myself here, to remain in this ignorant state as opposed to really doing research and having our eyes opened.
Definitely. No, I agree with that 100%.
And I think to tie this all back into sports, as Coach Tighe mentioned, that parent that wants to, or that fan sit in the stands and criticize a coach or a certain player, they're getting a snapshot on that game day of what's happening. They have great majority of them, very little understanding of the conversations that go on in the coach's office or after practice or before practice or the texts and the phone calls and the emails. So I think for me, and I'm going to let you have the final word here, but to wrap this up, and I love what Pastor McPherson shared, where's our heart going to be? I think after a tough loss as a coach or a player, after a tough loss for a presidential election, go back to where your heart is and find, whether you are on the winning side or the losing side, what now?
Definitely.
What are you going to do to move forward to help your team, whether it be your sports team or the nation, to move forward and to be what you know it can be?
Right. And go along those lines, be part of the solution, not the problem. And, voting is just the beginning of the solution. Go out and do your vote. And remember, the next day, November 4th, that's when we start uniting as a nation together. Win or lose your side or whatever, let's come together. Just like having a losing season, losing the big game, you still come together for the next season or the next game. So be part of the solution, not the problem. And we got a couple. What's up?
Well, hold that thought. I do have to add one more thing because something you just said, and I love it. How often do we tell our players? Because Coach Tighe and I both coached high school sports, baseball and football. How often do we tell our players, "Hey, your younger siblings are watching everything you're doing, everything you're saying, even when you're not being watched." Or maybe it's not even your sibling, but some little fourth grader in town or second grader or first grader who sees you as an idol now, is watching you. For the adults out there, 18 and over, that are voting,
100. Yep.
Especially for the parents. Your sons and your daughters are going to watch you. They're going to watch the things you put on social media. They're going to listen to the conversations you have in the other room, but they can still hear you. And they're going to learn more from your response to that post-game interview, if you will, and reaction than anything the news may put out there. So really be aware of the impact you have, win or lose, on those watchful eyes and ears that you care most about.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me share that.
Oh, no problem. I thought I had the final word.
Well, he's gonna have the final word now with the shout out. So I'm gonna go first with the shout out, so he does have the final word. I'd like to thank GameStrat once again. It is an instant replay company that a product company that we have used at Coronado High School for 3 seasons now. Absolutely love everything about them. We have the sideline and the end zone camera, so real time, matter of seconds. As soon as that play is over, I have the ability through an iPad or a laptop or my phone to show a player, show an assistant coach what went well or what we need to tweak and correct for the next play, instead of having to wait 12 hours, 24 hours till our next practice. We can learn right there on the spot. Amazing product, even greater people. GameStrat, check them out.
Definitely. And if you like coffee as much as I do, I definitely got to get my caffeine fix in the morning. I drink Muertos Coffee. You can go check them out at muertoscoffeecompany.com and use my code SDFD25 for a 16% discount. And also, that company gives back to breast cancer awareness, because it's a cancer awareness month, and also your local fire departments. And so go check them out at Muertos Coffee Company and put in code SDFD25. And as always, go out and vote, have a good time at it, and start uniting together as a family here in the United States. And as always, take it for what it's worth.
Stay strong.